The restaurant was perfect. I had booked a table at La Belle Époque, an upscale French bistro Emily loved. The ambience was intimate, with dim lighting, flickering candles, and the soft murmur of diners chatting over the clinking of glasses. A violinist played in the corner, adding a touch of romance to the evening, the kind of place where couples celebrated love and longevity, not the kind of place where things fell apart. I had spent hours preparing for this night. 7 years of marriage. It wasn't a milestone anniversary, but it felt significant. I wore my best suit, and I had even picked up a bouquet of her favorite flowers, peonies, delicate and fragrant. I wanted to show her I hadn't taken her for granted. I wanted to rekindle whatever spark we'd lost in the daily grind of work and life. As we sat down, I couldn't help but smile at how beautiful she looked tonight, in that light blue dress that hugged her frame just right. Her hair cascaded down her back in loose waves, and her eyes sparkled as she laughed at something I had said. I thought everything was perfect, but the vibe changed after the main course, just as we were finishing dessert, an exquisite raspberry soufflé I'd hoped would cap off the evening in a sweet, memorable way. Instead, it was the beginning of a conversation that would turn everything upside down. Emily put down her spoon, her smile faltering. Her hands fidgeted in her lap as if she was trying to gather the courage to speak. I noticed, but I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe she was nervous about some work issue or worried about her family. Then she broke the silence. "Mark, I've been thinking about something for a while now." She was biting her lower lip slightly, something she did when she was trying to work through a difficult thought. But there was an unfamiliar edge to her voice, something unsettling that didn't fit the celebratory mood. "Yeah?" I said, leaning forward, trying to be attentive. "What's on your mind?" She hesitated, glancing down at the table for a moment before meeting my eyes. "I've been feeling stuck. Like there's something missing in my life, in us." My heart rate quickened, but I tried to stay calm. This wasn't how I expected the night to go, but marriage had its ups and downs, right? Couples had hard conversations. "Okay," I said slowly, trying to be supportive. "Let's talk about it. What do you think we're missing?" "I love you, Mark, I really do." Her voice was soft, almost too soft. "But I've been thinking about how I can be a better partner for you." A knot formed in my stomach, and my mind raced. "A better partner? Emily, you're an amazing wife." I've been thinking about exploring relationships with other men." It felt like the world stopped. The restaurant sounds, the violin, the quiet conversations, the clinking of glasses, everything became distant, muffled, as if I was suddenly underwater. My heart pounded in my chest, and I could feel a rush of heat to my face. I wasn't sure I'd heard her right. I blinked at her, my mouth slightly open. "What?" I managed to ask, though it came out more like a breathless whisper. Emily swallowed hard, keeping her eyes locked on mine. "I've been thinking about this for a while. I don't want to leave you, Mark, but I feel like, if I explore relationships with other people, it might help me find something in myself that I've been missing. And in turn, that could make me a better partner for you." I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. I stared at her, waiting for her to laugh, to tell me it was some kind of cruel joke. But there was no smile, no punchline. She was dead serious. "Are you asking for an open relationship?" I asked, my voice breaking slightly as I struggled to understand how this could even be real. "I guess in a way, yes," she admitted, her fingers now nervously tracing the edge of her napkin. "But I want it to be about more than just sex. I want to experience different emotional connections, explore who I am outside of us. I think it would help me grow." I was floored. My mind was reeling, trying to make sense of the words coming out of her mouth. "Help you grow?" I repeated, incredulity lacing my voice. "You want to sleep with other men, and you think that'll make you a better wife?" She winced at the sharpness of my tone but didn't back down. "I know how it sounds, but it's not just about that. I want us to stay married, Mark. I love you, and I don't want to lose what we have. I just need to explore this part of myself." I shook my head in disbelief. "How could you say you love me and in the same breath ask me to let you have affairs? Emily, we've been together for 7 years. You're my wife. How could you think this is okay?" Her eyes filled with unshed tears, but she didn't look away. I'm not trying to hurt you, Mark. This isn't about replacing you or not loving you. It's about finding something that I feel is missing in myself. I don't even know what it is exactly, but I need to figure it out. I leaned back in my chair, feeling like the wind had been knocked out of me. My mind scrambled for something to say, some way to fix this, but nothing felt right. The woman I loved was sitting across from me, telling me she wanted other men, and somehow, she thought this would make our marriage better. Do you really think this is what we need? That this will make us stronger? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Because all I feel right now is like you're already halfway out the door. Emily's eyes softened. No, Mark, that's not what this is. I'm not leaving you. I'm just asking for space to explore, to grow. I believe it will make me more present with you, more engaged. I stared at her, trying to find a way to reconcile what she was saying with the love I still felt for her. But the betrayal cut too deep. I don't know how you can expect me to accept this, I said finally, my voice cold. How do I even trust you after this? She blinked back, the tears now threatening to spill over. I don't know how to make this easier. I just thought it was better to be honest. For a long time, I didn't speak. The room seemed to spin around me, my thoughts swirling in chaos. I couldn't make sense of how we'd gotten here, how the woman I thought I knew could suggest something so unthinkable. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, and met her gaze. If this is what you want, Emily, you'll have to do it without me. Her face fell, but I held my ground. I couldn't live in a marriage where my wife was exploring connections with other men. That wasn't the life I signed up for. And it wasn't a life I could accept. The days following Emily's proposal were a blur. I walked around in a haze, trying to process what had happened. My mind raced with unanswered questions. How could she want this? Why did she think I would be okay with it? I kept replaying that night in my head, wishing I could turn back time and prevent the conversation from happening. After several sleepless nights, I finally resolved to confront her about it. The air in our home felt thick with unspoken tension, and every time I saw her, my heart ached with the weight of betrayal. I had to talk to her. I needed clarity. I invited her to meet me at the Greenhouse Cafe, a neutral spot away from our house where we could sit down without the emotional baggage of our shared space. The cafe was a small, charming place with an outdoor patio filled with greenery and colorful flowers, a stark contrast to the turmoil in my heart. I arrived early, hoping to gather my thoughts and prepare for the inevitable confrontation. When Emily arrived, she looked as beautiful as ever, but there was a nervous energy in her demeanor. She walked toward me, her hands fidgeting at her sides, a slight tremor in her voice as she greeted me. Hey, Mark, she said, her eyes searching mine for any sign of warmth. Hey, I replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. I motioned for her to sit, and as she did, I could see the tension in her shoulders. The wait staff bustled around us, delivering lattes and pastries to other tables, but all I could focus on was her. Thanks for meeting me, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I think we need to talk about what you proposed the other night. Emily nodded, her expression growing serious. I know this is hard, Mark, but I really believe it's important to discuss. I don't want to lose you, but I feel this need to explore. Exploring what, exactly? I asked, leaning forward. What do you think you'll find that you can't find in our marriage? She sighed, running a hand through her hair. I don't know how to explain it. It's not that I'm unhappy with you, but I've felt confined, and I want to see what's out there. I think it could help me grow as a person and ultimately help our relationship. By dating other men? I felt a sharpness in my tone. You want to sleep with other guys and somehow think that will make you a better wife to me? How does that make any sense? Emily's face fell. I know it sounds crazy, but I've been thinking about it a lot. I just want to experience different connections. I want to see what's out there without losing you. Have you even considered how that would affect me? I countered, anger bubbling to the surface. You want to explore? You're talking about having affairs. That's not something I can just accept, Emily. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought maybe if I was honest about it, you'd understand. I ran a hand through my hair, feeling frustrated. Honesty doesn't make this any easier. You're asking for permission to cheat on me, and you think that's okay? How can you not see how this hurts me? I do see it. But I can't ignore how I feel, she insisted, her voice rising slightly. I want to experience life fully, and I believe this is part of it. Life fully? This is a fantasy, Emily. What do you think will happen when you come back to me after you've had your fun? What if you find someone you like better than me? Emily shook her head, her expression a mix of determination and sadness. I'm not looking for something better. I'm looking for understanding, for growth. I thought maybe this would make our love stronger, not weaker. I can't live in a marriage like this, I said, my voice steady but pained. If you choose to go down this path, then you need to find somewhere else to live. I can't be a part of this. Her face crumpled, and I felt a pang of regret, but I pushed it down. This was about self-preservation now. I had to protect myself from the fallout of her choices. Mark, please don't say that, she pleaded, her voice breaking. I love you. I don't want to lose you. It sounds like you're already halfway out the door, I replied, my heart racing. If you really believe this is what you need to do, then I can't stop you. But I won't be here waiting for you while you figure it out. Emily looked down, her hands shaking on the table. I never wanted it to come to this. I thought you'd be more open-minded, that you'd want to help me find myself. Helping you find yourself shouldn't involve breaking my heart in the process, I shot back. If you want to explore, then you need to do it on your own. Silence hung between us like a heavy fog, the bustling cafe fading into the background as we stared at each other. I could see the conflict in her eyes, her desire to be free clashing with the love she still had for me. I don't want to go, Mark. Please don't do this, she finally whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my decision. You've made your choice. Now I have to make mine. With that, I stood up, feeling like I was tearing apart as I walked away from her. I didn't look back, but the image of her sitting there, heartbroken, would haunt me for a long time to come. The days that followed our confrontation were a whirlwind of emotions, each moment heavier than the last. The house felt empty, not just because Emily was no longer living there, but because her presence lingered in every corner, in the echoes of laughter that once filled our home. Each time I passed our bedroom, I felt the ache of loss clawing at my heart. I had never anticipated that my life would turn this way, that I would be navigating a separation because of her desire to explore relationships outside our marriage. I remember the day she finally moved out vividly. It was a gray morning, the clouds hanging low in the sky, mirroring my mood. Emily had packed her belongings into boxes, her face a mixture of determination and sadness. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, arms crossed, feeling like a spectator in my own life. Are you really going to go through with this? I asked, my voice steady but strained. Emily paused, a box in her hands, and looked at me, her expression softening. I feel like I need to do this, Mark. It's not about you, it's about me finding myself. Finding yourself by breaking our vows? I countered, frustration boiling just beneath the surface. How does that make sense? I can't explain it, she replied, shaking her head. I just know it's something I need to explore. I wish you could understand that. I stepped closer, the air between us thick with unspoken words. Do you really think that by doing this, we'll find our way back to each other? Emily sighed deeply, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I hope so. But I can't keep living a life where I feel like I'm missing out on something. Missing out on what? You have a good life here, Emily. We have a life together, I insisted, my heart aching at the thought of losing her for good. She shook her head, her voice trembling. It's not enough for me anymore. I'm sorry, Mark. I really am. With that, she turned away, continuing to pack her things. Each item that went into a box felt like another piece of my heart being taken away. I knew I had to let her go, but the pain was suffocating. Later that afternoon, after the last box was loaded into her car, I stood outside, the chill of the wind biting at my skin. Emily hesitated before getting in, looking back at me with a mix of longing and sorrow. Are you sure about this? She asked again, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, trying to maintain my composure. If this is what you want, then you need to go. Mark, she began, her voice trailing off. I never wanted it to come to this, I know, I replied, swallowing hard against the lump in my throat. But you made your choice. Now I have to make mine. With one last, lingering look, she got into her car and drove away, leaving me standing in the driveway, watching her disappear down the street. The reality of our separation hit me like a punch to the gut, and I felt a wave of emotions crash over me: anger, sadness, and a deep sense of loss. In the following weeks, the silence in our home was deafening. I spent my days at work, burying myself in projects to keep my mind occupied. Evenings were the hardest. I'd sit alone at the dinner table, the chair across from me vacant, the echoes of our shared laughter still haunting the space. One Friday evening, after a particularly long week, I decided to meet my friend Jake for drinks at a nearby bar. I hoped that getting out of the house would help clear my head, if only for a little while. As I sat at the bar, nursing a whiskey, Jake arrived, a friendly smile on his face. "Hey man, you look like you've seen better days," I chuckled bitterly, shrugging my shoulders. "Yeah, well, I'm in the middle of a separation. That tends to take its toll," Jake frowned, sliding onto the stool next to me. "You want to talk about it?" "Not really," I said, taking a sip of my drink. "Just trying to move on, I guess." "Moving on isn't easy," he replied, glancing at the bar. "You know I'm here for you, right?" "Whatever you need." "Thanks, I appreciate that," I said, staring into my glass. "It just feels surreal. One moment I was planning our future, and now, everything is in pieces." Jake nodded, his expression sympathetic. "Have you heard from her? How's she handling it?" "Not since she left," I admitted, feeling a mix of relief and pain at the thought. "I think she's dating other guys now, exploring whatever it is she thought she was missing." "Man, that's rough," he said, shaking his head. "You don't deserve that." "I know," I replied, forcing a smile. "But I can't dwell on it. I need to focus on myself, too." "Good plan," Jake encouraged. "You'll get through this. You just need to take it one day at a time." As the night wore on and we shared stories and laughter, I felt a flicker of hope for the first time in weeks. It was a small light, but it reminded me that life would go on, and I could rebuild. By the time we left the bar, the weight on my shoulders felt a little lighter. As I stepped out into the cool night air, I realized that while my heart was still broken, I was ready to start moving forward. The weeks turned into months, and with each passing day, the heaviness in my chest began to ease. I focused on my work and started making an effort to reconnect with friends, one step at a time. It was a gradual process, but slowly, I could feel myself coming back to life. One evening, as I sat on my balcony sipping a glass of wine, I received a text from Jake. "Hey, there's a new art exhibit opening at the gallery downtown. Want to check it out?" I hesitated for a moment. The thought of stepping into a social setting still made me anxious. But I also knew I needed to get out more. "Sure, why not?" I typed back. When I arrived at the gallery, I found Jake near the entrance, his eyes scanning the crowd. He looked up and smiled when he saw me. "There you are! Ready to appreciate some fine art? Let's hope it's better than what I could do," I joked, gesturing toward a painting that looked like a splash of paint on a canvas. Jake laughed as we stepped inside. "You'd be surprised what people call art these days." As we wandered through the gallery, I found myself drawn to the vibrant colors and intricate designs of the paintings. It was refreshing to focus on something other than my troubles. I could hear Jake chatting with other friends as they admired the art, and I felt a sense of camaraderie that I had missed for so long. "Mark!" Jake called out, pulling me from my thoughts. "Come check this out." I approached him, curious. He was standing in front of a striking landscape painting, the colors so vivid they seemed to leap off the canvas. "What do you think?" he asked. "It's beautiful," I admitted, feeling a spark of inspiration. "I never realized how much I missed art." "Maybe you should try painting again," Jake suggested. "It might help you process everything." I chuckled, shaking my head. "I haven't picked up a brush since college. I'm not sure I have it in me anymore." "Why not?" "You never know unless you try," he encouraged. "Just think of it as a way to express yourself." I pondered his words. Maybe it was time to rediscover parts of myself I had neglected. "You know what? I might just do that." As the evening continued, I found myself relaxing more, chatting with new people and sharing laughs. I even met a woman named Sarah, who was equally passionate about art. We bonded over our favorite pieces, and I was surprised by how easy it was to talk to her. Art has a way of bringing people together, Sarah said, her eyes sparkling as she gestured toward a painting of a vibrant sunset. It's like it tells a story without saying a word. I agree, I replied, feeling a warmth spread through me. I've been out of the loop for a while, but it feels good to be back among people again. You should come to more events like this, she suggested, her tone encouraging. There's a whole world out there waiting to be explored. I smiled, feeling a connection forming. I'd like that. As the night wound down, I exchanged numbers with Sarah, and the prospect of a new friendship, or perhaps something more, filled me with a sense of hope. In the days that followed, I kept in touch with Sarah, texting her about new art shows and local events. Our conversations flowed effortlessly, and I felt an excitement I hadn't experienced in a long time. One afternoon, we decided to meet for coffee at Café Aroma, a cozy little spot I had recently discovered. As we sat outside, sipping our drinks and enjoying the warm sunshine, I couldn't help but feel grateful. I'm really glad we met, I said, looking into her eyes. It's nice to connect with someone who shares my interests. Me too, she replied, her smile genuine. It's refreshing to meet someone who's passionate about art and life. I took a deep breath, the weight of my past lifting a little more with every passing moment. Honestly, I've been going through a rough patch lately. My wife and I separated a few months ago. Sarah's expression softened. I'm sorry to hear that. That must have been tough for you. It was, I admitted, feeling vulnerable. But I'm starting to realize that it's okay to move on. Life goes on, you know. I completely understand, she said. It's important to give yourself the space to heal and grow. Sometimes, the hardest moments lead to the most beautiful transformations. I nodded, feeling a sense of understanding between us. Exactly. I've started to explore things I love again, like art and being around people. It feels good to rediscover myself. As our conversation flowed, I found myself laughing and sharing stories about my past experiences. Sarah listened intently, her eyes sparkling with interest. You have such a positive outlook on life, despite everything you've been through, she said, admiration evident in her voice. It's inspiring, thanks, I said, feeling a blush creep to my cheeks. I'm just trying to take things one day at a time. As our coffee cups emptied, I felt a warmth growing in my chest. It was the first time I had genuinely connected with someone since Emily left, and it felt exhilarating. Before we parted, I suggested, maybe we could check out that new art exhibit together next week? I'd love that, Sarah replied, her smile brightening the afternoon. Let's do it. As I walked away from the cafe, I felt lighter than I had in months. The thought of moving on had once felt impossible, but now it seemed like a new beginning. I was finally ready to embrace this new chapter of my life, to explore new connections and passions. That night, I picked up an old sketchbook from the back of a closet, flipping through the pages filled with half-finished drawings and forgotten dreams. Inspired by my time with Sarah, I grabbed a pencil and began to draw, the lines flowing easily across the page as I lost myself in the process. With every stroke, I felt the pieces of my heart coming back together, slowly but surely. I was moving on, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future.